Let's tune into that FAMS again, Alabama. I know you've been there in the chat. You were just collecting and hoarding all the questions for us. Do you have another one?
I sure do. This one comes from Sarah. What do we do when we have too many hell yeses at the same time?
Oh, yes. We have finite resources, but infinite desires. I totally get this. There are so many things that I've wanted to do with the minimalists that in isolation feel like a hell yes, right? But when you pan out and you realize, well, I'd have to focus all of my time, attention, energy, skills, talent, and money to creating these things. So in isolation, they're a yes. But what makes something a hell yes is when you take it out of isolation. It can only be a hell yes in the context of your broader life. This series we're working on right now, it's this YouTube series called Fragments. It's a video essay series we just talked about a moment ago. And Danny and I are working on it. Like, in order to work on that, I had to say no to a bunch of other things that may be more compelling financially, that may be more compelling in various ways. Things that I'd like to say yes to individually. But what makes the Fragment series a hell yes is I'm willing to say no to everything else so I can say yes to that.
That's right. Hell yes is tricky because there are a lot of things that can feel like a hell yes at the untested phase of ideation. Oh, I want to write a children's book. Oh, man, that just sounds so exciting. But it's the actual writing part that might make you say, oh, okay, the real thing is way more specific and constrained than the theoretical idea. Maybe this is not a hell yes. Or how about this one? Something pragmatic and everyday. Hey, man, we should go to the movie sometimes. That feels like a hell yes in theory. Yeah, let's go to the movie sometimes. Call me tonight and see if I want to go. Call me Saturday to see if I want to go. Oh, it turns out that anytime we get specific about going on a given day at a given time, it turns out it just happens to not be a hell yes, Dan. Okay, so maybe what's hell yes in theory isn't a priority. And this is where we've got to bring in priority with passion. Hell yes isn't just about what makes you feel excited in the moment when you think about the idea, but it's also what are you willing to prioritize? And so in some cases where it seems like we've got 20 hell yeses, that's only because none of them are really hell yeses.
Yes, because what happens here when we say yes to this one thing, we don't realize the other things we're saying no to. And I remember when we first started The Minimalists, I said yes to everything because everything seemed like a great opportunity. At the time, it was. If some small blogger wanted to do some interview, it was a yes for a different reason because, oh, you know what? I haven't really done any interviews about this. So whether or not anyone reads it or sees it, I'm saying yes to this because they would get something out of it, and I'm going to get something out of it. What I'm going to get is putting in the reps, putting in the rounds, getting good at doing these interviews. So when something consequential actually shows up, when the Today Show calls or CBS This Morning or Nightline calls, now all of a sudden, it's like, oh yeah, that's a hell yes, because I said yes to all of these other little things. But eventually you get to a point where you have so many yeses in front of you that it is irresponsible to say yes. You have to say no until you get that hell yes in front of you. And if you don't, you end up saying no to your hell yeses accidentally because you said yes to all these other things that seem entertaining. Danny, I think you were talking about this morning, actually. You're like, I'm thinking about, you compared ice baths to running, and both of those things in an abstract sense, they sound like, oh, it'd be really great for me to, I'm going to go out for this long 20-mile run because he's training for a marathon right now. And it feels good to say, next Thursday, I'm going to go out for this 20-mile run. But when Thursday shows up, now all of a sudden, what happens? Danny is like, oh, I feel the resistance. And I think the same thing is true with the ice bath that I do every morning. I feel the resistance. But right now, I think about taking the ice bath tomorrow. It sounds great. But here's the question. I think you illustrated it. You at least highlighted it for a moment, TK. Here's the question. Would I say yes to this today? And if the answer is no, then don't say yes to it 6 months from now, a month from now, or a year from now. say no to it tomorrow unless you would say hell yes to it today.
Yeah. And treat things like those choose your own adventure novels, where it's like, there's no right adventure to choose. It's just you choose one. And sometimes life doesn't say, hey, here is a mathematical formula that can show you which passion is a greater priority to you. Part of being a human being means taking a chance on our curiosity and trusting the magic of how our path unfolds when we're willing to have a little faith in our ability to improvise along the way. I have two things that I want to do. I don't know which one's going to make me more money and which one's going to make me happier. It's okay, but I trust my path. I trust my life. I'm going to toss a coin. I'm going to bet on one, and it's going to work, not because it'll be predictable, but because it'll transform me into something that I can never be today by just standing here thinking about which one's the right one.
And Sarah, if you haven't done so already, check out Derek Sivers' wonderful book. It's called Hell Yeah or No. And I think that'll give you some additional context about what are we saying yes to? Why am I saying yes to all of these things? How can I say no to those things so I can say yes to those hell yeses that are in front of me?
I hope you enjoy that highlight. If you'd like to see another one, check out this video right here. If you'd like to see that full episode, check out this video here. Or if you'd like to dive deep into the full private podcast, subscribe via the Patreon link in the description. Your support on Patreon is what allows us to keep this podcast 100% advertisement free.